Today we're going to begin learning about Voltaire. And Voltaire was a man during the Enlightenment who was all about tolerance and freedom of speech. Now, back in his time, people didn't always have the freedom to believe what they wanted to believe. Religion was very tightly controlled, and speech was tightly controlled. If you spoke against the leaders of the government, you could be thrown in jail or killed or tortured. If you spoke against the church in any way, the same thing could happen to you. If you disagreed with the Catholic Church in any way, you could be tried for heresy and even excommunicated. So he was very strong about religious tolerance and freedom of speech. And what tolerance means is that you accept that people have different beliefs and customs. You don't have to agree with it, but you don't force them to go what's against their own morals or beliefs either. So Voltaire is most known for saying, "I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend you to the death for your right to say it." And the lasting impact for this is Voltaire actually met with Benjamin Franklin, who was one of the founding fathers of the American Constitution and government. And while Benjamin Franklin believed in God, he didn't really agree with the Church of England, which caused Benjamin Franklin to really appreciate Voltaire's statements because Benjamin Franklin was a deist. So, Voltaire met Benjamin Franklin, and when the United States Bill of Rights was written, the ideas of freedom of religion and freedom of speech were added to our First Amendment to the Constitution. So, what does Voltaire mean when he says, "I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it"? What does this mean to you? Do you agree with Voltaire? Please take time to watch some of the videos that I have posted in Canvas after you have finished watching these notes. So here's a brain check. Which of the following statements would most likely have been made by Voltaire? A, the king needs absolute power. B, the government protects people's natural rights. C, we should do away with the death penalty. D, people must be free to speak their minds. If you said D, you would be correct. Voltaire would most certainly agree with the idea that people should be free to speak their own minds. Okay, now I always love talking about this guy mainly because I can never say his name correctly. But anyway, Beccaria is a guy who believed that people who are accused of crimes should also have rights. In the Middle Ages, torture of criminals was very common. Even if you were innocent, maybe you were just thought to be guilty, even though you were not. Devices like the rack, which is seen in the picture to the left of the screen, was often used to torture people to make them confess. And oftentimes, they would receive false confessions. So anyway, Beccaria wrote a book called On Crimes and Punishments, in which he argued against cruel and unusual punishments. So his ideas said that a person accused of a crime should receive a fair and speedy trial. They shouldn't have to wait around in a prison for months and years to have their side of a story told. After all, back then, if you were stuck in a prison for years, you'd most likely die. Torture should never be used, and capital punishment, which is the death penalty, should be done away with, according to him. This is one of his famous quotes. "For a punishment to be just, it should consist of only such gradations of intensity as to suffice to deter men from committing crimes. This means that the punishment should fit the crime and should not be more than necessary to stop someone else from doing it again." So, how are Beccaria's ideas different from the usual ways of treating prisoners in the Middle Ages? What does the phrase, "the punishment should fit the crime," mean to you? Do you think this is important? Why or why not? And how is this relevant to today? His lasting impact. Beccaриa's ideas were adopted straight into our Constitution's Bill of Rights. In fact, our 8th Amendment prevents cruel and unusual punishments for crimes, and our 6th Amendment provides for a speedy trial. The only exception is for, the death penalty, in which we still have in the United States today. Okay, Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Okay, he's also another famous writer of the Enlightenment, and he wrote The Social Contract. Okay, as we discussed yesterday, a contract is an agreement between two people, and a social contract is an agreement between the people and their government, or the government and its people. So, government is an agreement or a contract between a ruler and the people, according to Rousseau. He says that no man has any natural authority over his fellow men. No one is born higher than someone else. No one dies higher than anyone else. We are all equal in his eyes. So here's your ticket out the door. What freedoms did Voltaire want for the people? If you said freedom of religion and speech, you would be correct. What types of punishments was Beccaria against? If you said torture and excessive punishment, that'd be correct. Where can we see examples of Voltaire's ideas in America? If you said the Bill of Rights and the First Amendment, that would be correct. What idea of Beccaria's did the United States not use? If you said getting rid of the death penalty, that would be correct. We still have the death penalty in the United States.